Daniel Ricciardo, probably known to have the biggest smile on the Formula 1 grid. Now, since he's been in Formula 1, that smile has never been taken off. Now, he might have had a bit of a tricky road and a good run with Red Bull. It doesn't matter what is actually going on track. That smile will never get distinguished from his face. And really one of the most unique guys on the grid. He's basically changed Formula 1. It's not a serious, it's not a serious sport anymore. It's happy. It's Daniel Ricciardo. He is always going to be happy and he's always going to be smiley. And we've had some amazing years. We've had some amazing interviews and we love seeing him on the grid. Even if you're not a fan, even if you're not Australian, we have a soft spot for Danny Ric. But is that smile slowly going down? Is it turning into a frown? Is this the year that Daniel Ricciardo is going to stop smiling and treat Formula 1 like it's going bad, it's going wrong, and yeah, he's not going to have to smile about it? So of course, welcome back to the show, guys. The last show before the start of the season. Yes. Of course, Melbourne, we are in the Australian Grand Prix weekend and we cannot wait. Also, well, this is the first episode where we've actually passed 4 years on YouTube, so we didn't even know. Passed it the day and it was like, oh my god. So today we're going to be talking about Daniel Ricciardo, and of course, should he have left Red Bull to go to Renault? Of course, that's what the Honey Badger did. He joined Red Bull Racing in 2014, replacing Mark Webber. Now, since then, he was at the team since 2014, of course, up until 2018, when he left the team to go to Renault. Now, starting his second season, he's had a bit of a turbulent time. A good time with Red Bull, doing some good races. 2014, incredible. 3 races won over the reigning world champion of Sebastian Vettel. Absolutely incredible. But this year, or last year even, no wins. It could be turning into a little bit of frown. Now, he is on the belief that Renault is going to get him back to winning ways. He left Red Bull for himself. There's a lot of personal things about it. We can't fault that. If he wanted to leave Red Bull, that was his decision. He said that for the first time since, I think he was about 13 when he joined the Red Bull program. So of course, for the first time since he was that age, he has had the freedom to choose where he wants to drive. He's loved at Renault. Of course, he had a higher paycheck, and that was his decision. He obviously also didn't want to work with Max Verstappen, of course, but Renault are the team to win him the World Championship. Of course, something that he believes he should have already had in Formula 1. But is that the case? 2019 did not prove to be like that at all. Now, straight off the bat, he had 2 DNFs in Bahrain and a massive one in Australia in his home race. 2 seconds in, we talked about this in the preview as well, 2 seconds in, he loses his front wing. Absolutely, incredible. To me, it's probably one of the most unluckiest things to happen in the season. His best finish was, of course, the 4th place at the Italian Grand Prix, where a lot of hype was around that. Canada, both Renaults did get a good qualifying there, but loads of retirements. 5 DNFs, including a disqualification at the Japanese Grand Prix, left him in 9th place in the championship. Of course, one of the lowest positions he's ever had, nothing that he had with Red Bull. In the belief that this year is going to be better, he kind of scrapped this year. This is where he's putting all of his eggs in this basket. It could go his way, but do we think so? And of course, that's what we're here to discuss. But anyways, before we get on to our opinions, we have a guest on the show. The first guest of 2020 on the F1 Debate Show. Jason, how are you doing today, mate? It's great to have you on the show. Are you excited to talk about Danny Ric?
Hi guys, thanks for having me on. First guest of the year, quite the honour. Really interesting subject. I think Daniel Ricciardo, especially going into 2021 and beyond, I think kind of the key to the whole driver market as a whole. So I think discussing whether him really being at Renault for the long term, whether that was the right decision, is a really interesting debate. Yeah, definitely.
It is absolutely massive. So Jason, of course, he left Red Bull in a position that it's probably the closest he's ever going to get to winning the World Championship. I mean, in my opinion, you could probably look at 2015, he was a leader of the team. He had a lead over Danny Ric, and he was in that position. Of course, 2014, I've just said, amazing to win 3 over Sebastian Vettel, not just Seb, but the reigning world champion. Absolutely incredible. He's gone to Renault in a team where they haven't been on winning form. They've had many years of struggling. And of course, not just this stint in Formula 1. In stints before, of course, we look at 2008, their terrible season then, of course, caught up with Fernando Alonso and Flavio Briatore and, of course, Crashgate, things like that. But on the other side of the spectrum, of course, 2005, 2006 world champions with Fernando Alonso. So a very up and down time. But of course, that's the past. You can only look at the present. Danny Ric saw Renault, of course, improving over the years. I think they finished in 4th place in, of course, the previous season before he joined them in 2018. So, of course, going off 2019, was it the best decision to leave? Or firstly, why do you think he left Red Bull, in your opinion? And do you think it was the right decision? Of course, won with the team. He was good, he was implemented. We all loved him at Red Bull. I had so much of his stuff. So do you think he should have left Red Bull and gone to Renault with his beliefs? And did you back up his beliefs of, I'm going to win the World Championship with Renault, they're going to be a better team, I can help them, but also they're going to get me to win the World Championship? Of course, something that Red Bull couldn't do. What did you think when, obviously, he came out and said that?
I was surprised, but at the same time, I could sort of understand why he did it, in the sense that I've always had the sense with Red Bull that they really only really stand behind one driver, or it seems very difficult that they can get behind both drivers at the same time. You look all the way back to Vettel and Webber. Vettel was very much the golden boy, and Mark was always sort of treated as, oh, he's not bad for a number 2 driver, and so on. And obviously when Ricciardo initially joined Red Bull, I think it kind of took everyone by surprise when he came in and sort of usurped Vettel as the team leader. I think it caught the leadership at Red Bull off guard. I think it took Vettel himself off guard, and I think it really changed the dynamic. And obviously that led to Vettel part of the reason why Vettel decided he needed a new challenge and went on to Ferrari. And obviously then Ricciardo became the team leader, as you say. But since Max arrived in 2016, it's had that feel again of that he's the golden boy. He's the man that Red Bull truly want to get behind and make their next world champion. And I think Ricciardo started to sense, certainly towards the first stages of 2018, that Max was the guy that they were really behind, and that if he wanted to be a world champion, it might not actually be possible at Red Bull, because Max would be the one that would get perhaps a slight preferential treatment, much like Vettel did against Webber. So in terms of going to Renault, I think I can understand again why he did it. You look at Lewis Hamilton going to Mercedes. At the time, everyone said, "Oh, what's he doing? Why is he going to Mercedes? They've not been very successful so far." And that went on, of course, to be one of the greatest decisions in Formula One history. So he took a risk, and so far it's not really paid off. I don't really see it paying off in the next few years, but I don't sort of support the idea that it was a ridiculous move, that he was totally not understandable.
Yeah. Just one thing that you mentioned, of course, Netflix Drive to Survive, Series 1, played on the Baku crash. And they said that was the reason why he left. Now, of course, we know Netflix, it's Americanism movies. You can't believe everything that you see in movies and stuff like that, but you said there, of course, obviously, Max Verstappen is made. He is the team, like Sebastian Vettel was. Would you say that crash with Max, and kind of to show Danny Ric that he can't work with Max Verstappen, but also he knows that he hasn't got the team support, because of course the aftermath of that crash was that it was Danny Ric's fault and not Max's, when of course as a Formula 1 fan looking from the outside, like a not Red Bull fan, you might disagree with that. How big of an impact would you say that crash was to leave, and would you say that the biggest reason that he left was to leave because of Max Verstappen, or do you disagree with that? Because Chris Metland said in Netflix Series 2 that Danny Ric could be running away from a fight against Max. What do you think about that statement? And Jordan, of course, after Jason's answer, what do you think about, do you agree with that? Do you think that he ran away from a fight with Max Verstappen, or do you think it really had nothing to do with Max and he was leaving because he just needed that new challenge?
I think Max played a part, but certainly not in the sense of the two of them not being able to work with each other. I think Max and Daniel always had a really, really strong working relationship, and I actually think that Red Bull knew that as well, and I think that's why they did their best to try and hold on to Daniel. And obviously Helmut has come out since and said we miss Daniel in the team, and that proves sort of what an asset he was. But again, as I alluded to before, I think again it was just that feeling that Dan probably had in the back of his mind, that if and when Red Bull had the fastest car and really could challenge for a world championship, that when push came to shove, it might be that Max got that slight preferential treatment, and I think perhaps Baku was an indication that of an example of where that might be the case, and I do think it played a role. I'm not saying it was the ultimate underlying factor, but I do think that sense of I'm not sure I'm going to be able to fight with Max did play a factor.
I think what Ricciardo wants out of all of this is a move to more or less Ferrari by the looks of it. Like you've seen it behind the scenes on Drive to Survive, what you guys were referencing there, he was looking at what's Ferrari doing, what's Mercedes doing. And at the time, there was speculation over Raikkonen in Bottas, so there could have been a seat up for grabs there. So you could have just transferred from Red Bull to Ferrari or even Mercedes for that matter. And that's that. Like I said, that's what he wanted. He knew that Ferrari and Mercedes are in a much better position than Red Bull were at the time, because we're looking at this from where we're looking at this from a season, Ricciardo at Red Bull, at Renault, and what Red Bull are progressing to. And ultimately, Ricciardo didn't want to be part of the Honda project. I think that was partly one of the reasons, but not the properly reason. But like he even said that, Honda for me just didn't look like they were in a position to produce a championship winning engine. So therefore, leaving a Renault engine to go to a Renault engine essentially, which at the time was unreliable, to be perfectly honest. Got the act together a little bit, but yeah. Honda seemed to be just a step ahead of the Renault engine at the moment, which is incredible. Don't get me wrong. But I think, like I said before, the ultimate goal for Ricciardo is to be in a Ferrari, more or less a Ferrari. I think that's where he wants to be, because at the time he even said when he left that Red Bull were in that sim, where they were the third fastest team throughout the majority of more or less Ricciardo's time at Red Bull, apart from 2015 where it was just god awful. And he was just like he couldn't see the team moving on. So in that sense, he wanted a brand new challenge, and he went to Renault. And at the time, Renault had just had a really, really good season, finishing fourth. They're on the potential. They were going. They finished higher and higher in the standings each year, and the next step was to be that podiums, that challenging for maybe race victories a step too far, but certainly podiums and laying a good foundation for the future for 2021 and pushing on from there. But it didn't. It just went backwards in development, and for some reason it just didn't pay off for Renault, and now we're looking at it as if it was a huge mistake. But I don't think it has. At the moment, it hasn't been a mistake yet. We've got to kind of see where, we can't really say it's either a mistake or a success unless Ricciardo does something, like retire or win a championship. Like if he retires and he's done nothing, you could say it's a mistake. And if he wins the championship or even wins more races than he did in Red Bull, then alright, you could say it was a bit of a success. But the goal is to win that championship, like what he wants to do. And certainly, I don't know how he's going to do in 2020. Like, again, first race of the season this weekend, home Grand Prix. I'm hoping he'll do better than he did last year. And obviously they've concreted that section up, so hopefully he won't lose his front wing again. But if he can have a good start, that'll give Ricciardo motivation. Because let's face it, I think for me, Ricciardo having 7 wins in Formula 1 is criminal. He's a lot better than a Renault driver. He's a better driver than 7 wins. Should he have a world championship? Yes, I agree with what he said when he did that interview with Will Buxton. Buxton, whatever. Buxton, like name John up there. Yeah, I think it is criminal that Ricciardo is in this position now. But certainly, it's not the end of the line, because, like I said, there is links of him going to Ferrari, replacing Sebastian Vettel, which I'm going to kind of direct that next question to you guys. So if Ricciardo, let's say in our own imaginary world of Formula 1, Seb leaves Ferrari, he either retires, goes off, and does whatever. Ricciardo gets snapped up by Ferrari, he's in that Ferrari seat, brilliant. He's now at the front of the grid where he wants to be and stuff like that. His teammate will be Charles Leclerc, of course, but then isn't he just going to be in the same position as to what he was when he was working alongside Max Verstappen? Like, Verstappen was of course the future of the team. Charles is definitely the future of Ferrari. He signed a long-term contract. So do you think if Ricciardo does go to Ferrari, do you think that he'll be in the same position and playing number 2 to Charles, just like what he did with Max at Red Bull? Jason, I'll let you start.
Yeah, that's kind of the catch-22 really for Daniel, in that I don't really see where he goes from Renault, because as you say, with Ferrari, Charles has got that. He's got an even longer deal now than Max. He's got till 2024, which was a big sign of faith. For Ferrari to give a young driver that long a contract, that's almost unheard of for them. Which, as you say, kind of indicates he's going to be the number one. And we all know Ferrari's history down the years. They very rarely have 2 equal drivers. It's normally that you have the number 1 and you have the number 2, and you have to wonder that if Daniel would come in and would have to be the number 2. Although I do think that there is the argument that he perhaps might be able to beat Charles in the way that he might not be able to beat Max. I do think there's a case that Ricciardo's strengths perhaps complement Charles's areas where he needs to work on. Certainly in terms of race pace, I thought Daniel is one of the best racers on the grid. Charles is sometimes in races faded, so that could be an area where Daniel might be able to get on top of Charles. But I do agree with that awkward position where Daniel's in, where he wouldn't be the future of the team, certainly in any sense like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think to go to Ferrari would be good for him. He needs to be in a championship winning car. I don't think Renault are at the moment. So of course Ferrari would be, and I think that would be an exciting move for him. And of course they would have Charles Leclerc as the team leader. Charles is somebody who I think will never leave Ferrari. There's actually no chance of him leaving Ferrari. I don't think he's in the silly season, and he won't be for a very long time. He's implemented, he's kind of he's a Tifosi, he's implemented into Ferrari for a long time. But I mean, like you've just said, when he came into Red Bull in 2014 against Sebastian Vettel, the reigning world champion, nobody was thinking Danny Ric was going to win. Mainly, no one was thinking that Sebastian Vettel was not going to win. But as I say, no one was thinking that Danny Ric was going to win. It was absolutely incredible. And if he came into Ferrari, there might be a little bit of that kind of people now turning against Danny Ric. Like when he came in from Toro Rosso, there was probably a bit of kind of encouragement. People who were Australians, maybe Toro Rosso fans, and obviously Red Bull fans were thinking it's going to be good to have him in. Obviously, I mean, that program did amazing, mainly because of course the guys next to Sebastian Vettel came through Toro Rosso, had an amazing career with Toro Rosso. Of course, won in 2008, promoted in 2009, won in 2009, the first win for Red Bull Racing, ahead of his teammate who'd been there since the start. It was incredible for Sebastian Vettel. So a new guy comes through the ranks. We'll be giving him encouragement. But in terms of how he could actually beat Sebastian, there was no way he could have in 2014, but look at what he did. But now people might be turning against Danny Ric and saying, well, Charles Leclerc is better. Danny Ric is not good. Obviously, look at what he's done in his past. Look at what he did in 2019 Renault, because that's really the only season that's kind of locked in at Renault. And he'll get beaten by Charles Leclerc, and a lot of people will think that. He might be able to pull off kind of a Sebastian Vettel 2014 season, winning. Obviously, I remember, Canada, incredible race. I'd say his best win there. Canada was amazing. Hungary was a surprise. Belgium, we all settled down and thought, Danny Ric, he's used to winning now, 3 wins. And of course, as Jordan just said there, so we got 3 wins in 2014, and then the next 4 came scattered over the next few seasons he had at Red Bull, which is criminal. I agree with Jordan. It's not.
Like I said, yeah, it really is criminal that Ricciardo is on so Mark Webber's got more wins than
watch your Mark Webber talk, man. I love Mark Webber, but that's the thing. I love Mark Webber. Well, he was my first driver that I came in for him. But again, like him, I always back Danny Ric. I would never just back someone because they're winning all the time. I'm a Verstappen fan only because he's the leader of my team and he's winning. Mark Webber wasn't, but I still really liked him, and actually at that point he was my favourite driver, and I liked him over Seb. I only just liked Seb more because again he was winning for my team, and I'll always do that. But yeah, anyway, away from those two. So yeah, Danny Ric, to go to Ferrari, he won't be kind of back to do well there, and it depends how much he wants it, because I know he said that in interviews, and he said he's watched other teams and he wanted to do a Hamilton move, but he still lies at Renault. I just want to kind of change the subject back, because if he's going to go to Ferrari in 2020, let's say 2021, 2022, 2023, whatever, of course Sebastian Vettel, he's not going to be in Formula 1, for the next few seasons. He's obviously he's coming towards the end. That's even if he replaces Seb. He could replace Shaw. Never know. Probably Seb. So, but Renault though, he can only go there if he has a good season with Renault, and of course that is his original focus. So in terms of what he's going to achieve, Jason, it wasn't great last year. 9th in the championship. His teammate was 14th. Okay, yes, of course he beat Nico Hülkenberg, which you could say was a pretty big feat, because Nico has been in Formula 1 for over a decade, and of course never amounted to what he should have. Or let's keep that for another episode, because we're going to go off in another direction. But he beat Nico Hülkenberg quite fair and square, really, in terms of what he got. Better race results, better qualifying, showed us that he could beat Nico. So in that way, that's good. He won the inter-team battle. He was already liked at Renault. Now he's probably loved at Renault, and he's like, okay, I've beat my teammate. It's amazing. I've come in. Obviously, Nico's been there longer, and I've beaten him. That's incredible. But on the bigger scale, he hasn't done much justice. You've got the 2 Red Bulls that have ran away with it. Actually, you've got the 3 Red Bulls, because of course Pierre Gasly and Alexander Albon were both sharing half a year, and even their results were better than Danny Ric's. So Alexander Albon started the year with Toro Rosso, ended with Red Bull, he was ahead. Pierre Gasly started the season with Red Bull, half the season with Red Bull, then had half the season at Toro Rosso, and he still was better than a full season of Danny Ric at Renault. And again, that's just like, of course I love Pierre Gasly, and I do like Alexander Albon. Of course he's in my team, so now he's generally going to get support. But like when a football player signs for your team, it's like, I'll support him until he goes. Jose Perez, loved him, now don't like him. So yes, I just wanted to have a little dig. I do like Perez though, he's a good player. So anyway, yes. So Danny Ric, good season with Renault. It didn't go his way, but the main thing is that he said in 2019 was going to be kind of a test the water year. It doesn't matter that car isn't great. He wanted a progressive year, and of course he would have loved a 4th position to match 2019, because obviously, as Jordan said there, since the years they've been in Formula 1, they've been on the rise, for the main reason that 2020 is going to be good. So again, is he going to win races? What's he going to do? Best finish was 4th place in Italy, Jason. What can you see Danny Ric doing this year? And if it doesn't go his way, that smile, that kind of happy-go-lucky attitude that we see, is that going to go? If Danny Ric starts losing it this year, if he has a bad result in Australia, and we're at the summer break, we get to the summer break, whatever race that's going to be, China or whatever, Abu Dhabi, and we get to that summer break and he's not winning, is that smile going to turn into a frown? And is that going to be the closing chapter of Daniel Ricciardo? What do you see happening this year with Renault? Yeah, and just same question to you, Jordan. So of course, Danny Ric. I mean, what is going to happen this season with Renault? And is this really his crucial... Actually, I've said to you before, I think, in my opinion, this is the most crucial year for him, to just kind of decide what's going to happen. And of course, Ferrari, you've said Ferrari, it could be a possibility. So does he have to have a good season with Renault to possibly get to Ferrari? And is this kind of his final destination? Or is there still more in mind for him? So if he does well at Renault this year, then he will go to Ferrari, and that's the team that he wants to go to. What do you think will happen this year?
I don't think he really needs to have a really awesome season to go to Ferrari. If Ferrari, I think he might have been on Ferrari's radar for possibly some time. Maybe I just an open guess, but we all know how good Ricciardo is. He showed it at Red Bull at times. Glimpses of it in the Renault when the car maybe wasn't that good on that weekend, and Ricciardo pulls out the bag. He's one of the last of the late breakers. He is good, and obviously he's such a likable character. I mean, it will look weird of him being all happy and smiley in a team like Ferrari, who are quite secret and kind of smiles off kind of thing at certain points. But I think Ferrari are slowly moving into the modern day time. So I think adding Ricciardo into their team could just... I think that'll be a good transition period, but actually I'll begin with this season. I'm in the dark in terms of I'm not thinking Renault will be 2018 kind of pace, where they were banging on the door for podiums and looking like they were going to be, these guys are going to be the really really good, because now that Racing Point are more than likely are going to be the fourth quickest team at the start of the season. That's going to drop Renault back to 5th and 6th. So it's not going to be a really good start for Renault. So maybe Ricciardo might be aware of this and maybe might not be we'll be fine. But if things don't improve this season for Ricciardo, then I think that smile could just slowly chip away, and even if that Ferrari deal maybe doesn't kind of come off, and then maybe it's where does he go? He's more than likely he'll be sticking with Renault, and fingers crossed that they've got to bang on for 21, because it's a level playing field, and maybe Renault have got it spot on and they're back at the top. So, and maybe that's the vision that Renault promised Ricciardo, and that's one of the reasons why he moved there. Get there in early, get settled in, make himself known within the team, and then bang on, and once 21 comes along, boom, I'm at the front. But it's only guesswork. Renault could just be totally, absolutely god awful. But if Ferrari do come knocking, I think certainly Ricciardo will be considering it. I wouldn't be surprised if he has maybe held talks in the past with the team, and maybe okay, there isn't an opportunity available yet. But like I said, Ricciardo is a good driver. He's certainly one of the best. Like I said, one of the best on the grid, without a shadow of a doubt. World Championship material. Yes, I think I would love to see him in a proper championship battle all the way to the end. I mean, to be fair, his route with Red Bull was more he was supposed to be the next in line. It was written in the stars for Seb to possibly dominate a bit more with Red Bull. I mean, obviously unlucky that Red Bull, and the Renault engine kind of went the route that they did in 2014. But Ricciardo did beat Vettel, which is incredible at the time, like you said, like you touched on earlier, Lyle. Then when Vettel left, it was written in the stars that Ricciardo was going to be the future of the team. Let's get the Renault engine sorted, let's get everything together, and let's go forward. Ricciardo, we all knew how good Ricciardo was then. I mean, he gained a lot of respect after beating Vettel, and then just like that, Verstappen comes in and he's back to square one. He's like, you are having my... obviously, Verstappen wasn't immediately number one straight away, but from what we've seen in the past with the likes of Schumacher and Barrichello and stuff like that, and of course Vettel and Webber, we kind of knew what direction this was going to go in. Verstappen was young, quick, had a lot of potential. Red Bull backed the hell out of him. I mean, getting in the Red Bull after 4 races in 16, what does that tell you? Red Bull wanted him badly, and then got him in, and now everyone just went, yeah, we kind of know where this is going. And it was made clear as the seasons went on and on and on. But Ricciardo didn't kind of let Verstappen let him run the show. Ricciardo got his act together and did some really good performances. In my eyes, in times better than Verstappen in some circumstances. But it didn't pan out the way it is, and definitely Ricciardo wanted that away from the limelight. And he's definitely still got a point to prove in 2020. What Jason said earlier about the whole Ocon thing, I think that will push Ricciardo a bit more because he'll know that, well, if Ocon beats me, what's that going to look like on my kind of reputation kind of thing. I don't think that will happen. No disrespect to Ocon, he's a good driver, but Ricciardo for me is a lot better than Ocon. But that's good. That battle is going to be quite good, so I'm intrigued to see how that goes. If Ricciardo does beat Ocon, then possibly there is a slim chance he might go into a top team, but it could only be for a seat filler until someone else becomes available. Like, to be fair, I can see Mick in that seat, not for 21, but for in the future, because the Schumacher name ultimately. So maybe filling in that seat until Schumacher or even someone else is ready to go up to Ferrari, or maybe not at all. Maybe get someone else in. I mean, Perez is linked with that. He's been linked with that seat forever, but to be fair, I think Perez is he's at racing point till the end of his days. So, and in a way, I kind of think Ricciardo is, unless Verstappen pulls off a shock move to Mercedes, and then maybe a seat opens up with Red Bull. Maybe they'll go back to Ricciardo, perhaps. But that's talk, and that's a big prediction. That, which again, I can't see playing off. But as of this season, I can see Ricciardo, improving slightly, but nothing to the direction he wants to go in. So I think for me, the best option, my overall kind of conclusion for this is it a mistake at the moment in time? No, because he hasn't been there long enough to kind of prove himself. Like, Renault haven't really proven that, like, what the kind of worth in the future, of course. And he's only been there one season. Fair enough. That that's fine. So certainly, let's give it more time to see kind of what we think of this. 21 is going to be a critical year for Ricciardo. I think he'll stay there for another year with Renault. See what 21 is like. If it's good, he might stay there and fight at the front. And if not, he may just walk away from the sport because age isn't on his side. There is a lot of really good talent coming through the ranks at the moment, at this moment in time. So guys like Ricciardo, it's not good for them because age isn't on their side. So yeah, I think for me, my ultimate kind of conclusion from this is: was it a mistake? No, not at the moment. So Jason, like, what's your kind of overall evaluation from the question essentially? In kind of like a yes and no, maybe explain a bit about giving your reasons why. Was Ricciardo leaving Red Bull a mistake?
Well, one thing I was just going to quickly add before I come to my conclusion is that obviously we know that Ricciardo had talks with McLaren before he went to Renault, and you wonder potentially whether Ricciardo now regrets not taking that decision. Obviously, at the time, it made sense to choose Renault over McLaren. So McLaren came off of that awful season with Honda.
If I'm honest, I totally forgot about that part about Ricciardo having talks with McLaren. Yeah, he said it in. Was it Drive to Survive? I think he said it in. Yeah. I completely forgot about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously now they had that brilliant season last year at the head of the midfield, and they've got the deal with Mercedes coming for engine supply for 2021, and you wonder potentially now if Ricciardo's now looking at two mistakes. He's looking at the mistake of leaving Red Bull, and also should I have gone to McLaren instead of Renault? But sort of back to the main point, I agree with you in that I don't think you can call it a mistake yet. I think it's too soon. Obviously, I think if he gets trapped in Renault and Renault remain this sort of languishing fifth or sixth best team year in, year out, and he's not able to show those talents that we saw so wonderfully in 2014 and 2016, I think especially both those seasons, I thought Ricciardo was arguably the driver of the year. And as you say, if he gets stuck in that sort of position where he's languishing, fighting for minor points year in, year out, I don't think it'll be too long before he questions his future in the sport. We know he wants to try NASCAR at some point. He probably wants to try other areas of his life, and I think you wouldn't rule out the possibility that in a couple of years' time, if he's still stuck at Renault with no real clear options on where to go, that he might just say, I'm done with Formula One, which would be a great shame because I do think he could be a world champion in the right environment. But in terms, as I say, don't think you can call it a mistake yet. We have to see what Renault do with the new regulations. We have to see if Ricciardo can use Renault as a leverage to get himself into a Ferrari or into another top car. And unless he's unable to achieve either of those things, then obviously at that point it would be a mistake.
I think, I mean, obviously I have a lot of faith in Ricciardo for this year. Obviously I put him on my podium for this weekend. So I'd like to say that he has a good season. I mean, the only thing that he can do really is podiums. Just get podiums, and that's, I mean, obviously yes, you know, I mean, there is other things like fastest laps and things that he can get, but podiums, that's what he's in for. And in terms of why did he come to Renault to do that? I don't really know. I mean, of course, you know, like Lewis Hamilton, he went to Mercedes, but I don't think he was thinking of, I'm going to change this team into what it is right now. He was just so lucky, and of course Mercedes had a plan that he loved to read. Like, honestly, it was an amazing move. He wanted a change. He did, you know, he might not have wanted to roll with Verstappen, but I mean, I kind of agree with what Chris said in Drive to Survive. You know, he ran away from a fight a little bit, and I know it sounds really harsh, but at the end of the day, he was in a good position. There was no pen to paper that said Verstappen is the team leader. It's kind of like your own opinion. It's like nobody said, you know, Dieter Mateschitz and all that, Helmut, Christian Horner, they didn't say that they don't want Danny Ric at that team. They didn't say Max is the leader. It's just Danny Ric thought that, you know, possibly Max was, you know, in that position at that time, and he wanted to go somewhere where he could be the team leader. Of course, having Ocon at the team, like you've said there, you know, is a massive challenge. But I would say more for Ocon's side, and if Ocon can beat Ricciardo, that will look amazing on his CV going forward, because Toto Wolff now is thinking, okay, I've got obviously Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas is still here, and Valtteri Bottas is not secure 100%. He's kind of like the second driver at Red Bull. He will never be secure, Valtteri Bottas. Unfortunately, I think he's going to have a great season. Obviously, I have a lot of faith in him, but he's not secure. But there's also George Russell at Williams, terrible car, that is never going to show his potential. So Toto Wolff has to find minimal gains in him, like obviously, for example, you know, the 21-0, he beat Robert Kubica in every single qualifying last year. That's a marginal gain to show that he is good enough for that Mercedes seat. And obviously, those two drivers, I just said, Bottas and Russell are going for that seat, and also Ocon. So when Hamilton retires, or if Bottas is kicked out, you know what I mean? Like there's kind of one too many drivers on that Mercedes, riding that Mercedes wave. And if Ocon can beat Ricciardo this year, it's going to be amazing for his CV. And Toto Wolff will see that, and he'll be like, that's incredible. Danny Ric's been in the sport for a long time, and he has driven for Red Bull with multiple race wins behind him. And if you've beaten him, then amazing. Like, come and do that for my team. I mean, Bottas hadn't won a race when he went to Mercedes. You know, he was just fresh off the back of obviously a good Williams drive, but only because it was a good car, not because he was amazing. He got amazing because he's at Mercedes, but I wouldn't say he was a good driver when he got in there. Anyway, so kind of going away from that, obviously it's a big chance for Ocon. It's a chance for Ricciardo as well, but I do think that he probably will beat Ocon in terms of what he's got, the resources, and of course how good he is as a driver. I don't see the Ferrari being on the horizon. I think he's in the long haul to change Renault, but to change it for himself, I don't think he's doing a Hamilton. I think he just wants to change it to win World Championships for himself. And in Red Bull, he was in a position to do that. And I know that you can't see into the future, you know, hindsight doesn't exist. So he can't have seen that Honda was... He saw Honda from McLaren's point of view, and he thought, I don't want a piece of that. But going off what John said quickly though, he made the choice at Hungary 2018, the race of when Max Verstappen had an engine failure from Renault. And obviously Danny Ric had problems as well in the race, so like you see that, and then he made the decision. You don't know why. Red Bull was his team, it was his home, he'd been there for a long time. If anything, he was more sustained in that team. And after what had happened in 2014, they should have loved having him there. So long story short, I do think it was a mistake to leave Red Bull. My opinion is that he should have stayed at the team. Also for Red Bull's sake, because they would have had Max Verstappen and Danny Ric, and Pierre Gasly and Alexander Albon wouldn't have come through the team, and of course the trade in places would not have happened, like at all in the second point. We wouldn't have seen, you know, this Pierre Gasly for half a year, Alexander Albon for half a year. Of course, my views on Pierre Gasly are still he never had a good run in that car. He never showed people what he was made of. And even Alex Albon, I was getting worried around the Russian Grand Prix when he crashed in FP3. I was thinking, this is about 4 races in, but it's looking bad for Albon. He could be replaced like Gasly was. And of course, if Ricciardo stayed at the team, there wouldn't have been any of that. There'd have been more sustained. I mean, they would have loved that as well. I'm sure that, if they had the chance, if we kind of could read Christian Horner's mind, we would read the statement, Danny, please don't leave, I want you to stay. I mean, we all know that. Obviously, he said that when he rang Christian Horner and told him that I'm leaving Red Bull. Christian Horner said, I thought it was a joke. I thought that he was joking on when he texted us. So I think that he shouldn't have left. I think that he was in the best position to win. We could be seeing Danny Ric now on the podium many times, doing the shoey and possibly fighting for the World Championship. And he was always going to fight Max. He still is in the future. Max is going to stay around for 10 years. So if he thinks I'm leaving Red Bull, he's not going to be fighting Max. And I don't know what he's playing at, because Max is going to be here for a long time, and if anything, Max has just got a better car than Danny Ric has right now. So he should have stayed at Red Bull, should have just stuck it out. I don't agree that he's running away from a fight that much, but it possibly wasn't the best decision to say, I don't want to work with Max, I'm going to another team. Red Bull were the team, and again, Jordan, just you were saying like you should have gone to a top team, and is he going to a top team? Well, the thing is, Red Bull are actually a top team. Is he going to a top team? Well, if he stayed, then he would have been at a top team, and we wouldn't be worried about Ricciardo at the moment. I do have faith that he'll have a good season this year for sure, but I don't think he should have left Red Bull, and I do think it was a mistake. Anyway, guys, that is the end of the episode. Obviously, you've got our opinions there, some yes and some no's as well. Obviously, leave it in the comment section below. What do you think? Should Ricciardo have left Red Bull? What do you think is going to happen this year with Renault? And yeah, what do you think? Could we see Danny Ric now in the Red Bull overalls with Honda doing shoeies, or is it best that he stays at the team in yellow and just not really on the podium, but just fighting and happier in himself? Obviously, let us know what you guys think there. It's a big one. We all love Danny Ric, as I say. Massive spot for soft spot for that Australian. Obviously, thank you very much to our guest, Jason. Thank you very much for being on the show. Any final words from you? Obviously, it's a pleasure to have you on. First guest of 2020, and obviously ahead of race day. We are in the race weekend of Albert Park, of Melbourne. Are you excited for the season? We are finally back. I mean, it's going to be a good one, isn't it? And just some bold predictions from you. Who's going to win this? Who's going to win the championship?
Well, obviously the Ferrari family would love to say Charles would win it, but I do think Lewis is going to have that number 7 this year. I think Mercedes, the machine that just keeps rolling on year in, year out. It's incredible what they do. They're one of the greatest sporting teams now in history, it has to be said. That the way that they continuously strive for improvement, obviously with the DATS introduction, obviously all the hype around that, and it's just amazing that every year they find new ways to sort of get ahead of the competition. And I'd love to give a bold prediction, but I have to say I think Hamilton's going to have another championship. I think if the boldest I would go is I think Max could be the guy to really push him this year. I think Red Bull look really strong. They look confident. There's not been a lot of murmurs coming out of their camp this year, which I think is always a good sign that they're pretty happy. They're pretty content with where their car's at. And I think we saw signs, certainly in the second half of last season, that if Max has got the car that can give the Mercedes a run for its money, then the battles between Lewis and Max can be sensational. Obviously, Hungary, I thought, was a brilliant race. Brazil, with some of the moves that Max made on Lewis. I don't know if I've ever seen a driver have the audacity to make some of the moves that Max made on Lewis that day. And I think that potentially could be the story of the season of whether Max can be the guy to dethrone Lewis. I think that's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, it should be a really juicy fight, and even there, guys, Red Bull fighting Max, contender with Lewis Hamilton. If that is the case, even if Danny Ric isn't good enough to beat Max, he could have had a third place. If Max has a dominant car, then so could have Danny. I mean, there we go. You've just said it, Jason. So there we go. Danny Ric, third place. Strong. Possible. He could have been, and also he could have been the guy to challenge Lewis Hamilton. We just don't know. Of course, we can't change the past. We can't see into the future. It's a big gamble in Formula One. There has been unlucky drivers in the past who have moved when they shouldn't have, and there has been very lucky drivers, like Lewis and people like that. So where does Danny fall? It is a really big one. But anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you very much for watching along with us. It's been an amazing debate. Obviously, we are on the weekend of the Australian Grand Prix. Hope you guys enjoyed the season. We've got so much content coming up over the season. We hope you can stay tuned with us. Thank you very much for watching this episode, guys, and until next time, we'll see you later.
See you later, guys.